A pair of hikers from Rhode Island have been rescued after getting stuck in treacherous terrain on Mount Washington.
At least one hiker expressed they were feeling symptoms of hypothermia. Officials tell us the hikers were brought to safety around 10 p.m. and thankfully, there were no injuries.
This was no drill, but a real-life emergency deep in the White Mountains.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stomp.
Okay, Stomp, welcome to episode 12.
12? 12 already, huh?
12, the dirty dozen. Do you think we were going to get to 12 this quickly?
No, I mean, it's sort of strange. It feels like we just started, in a sense, but it also feels like it's been a lifetime.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about like web development and publishing podcasts, more than I ever want to know.
Mm-hmm. The dirty dozen.
Yeah. We're not making any money out of this either. Like, if somebody's listening to this and they want to pay us for, I don't know why, but if you want to advertise, like, let us know. We'll take your money.
Oh, man, I've sold like 50 sweatshirts already, so I'm making some cash.
Oh, you have?
I forgot to tell you about that.
Wait a minute. Well, I want our auditor to look into what you're up to.
But who knows? Maybe some merch is something we can talk about.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this week, special episode, we're doing a segment where we are welcoming the Hiking Buddies New Hampshire 48 Facebook group to the show. Don't like to hike alone? The Hiking Buddies have it covered for hikers of all experience levels. We're very excited to welcome Ben and Hayley, who will join us to talk about how you can connect with the New Hampshire hiking community to find new friends to join you on all your adventures. And then later on the show, we have a slew of search and rescue news to go through. It's getting warm out there, and people are getting hot, dehydrated, tired, and guess what? That spells trouble. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
All right. So I am taking care of my dehydration by drinking a beer. Do you have anything to drink tonight, Stomp?
Yeah. Well, I've had the benefit of having my folks here, so I had my mom make one of her specialty margaritas that only a mom could do.
So is that your go-to drink from now on? I think this is like the second week in a row you've been drinking margaritas.
Well, it's like 100 degrees in the studio at the moment. I've got the back deck open and the fans blowing, and it's actually really hot here at the moment.
Yeah, it's been really humid and hot, and we'll talk about that later in the show. Like, people are just not ready for it.
Yeah, it's really strange. Yeah, the lilacs have blossomed way early. Hummingbirds are here a little earlier than usual.
Yeah, I don't really keep track of that stuff, but I do, like my local, like we have a farm where I run, and I definitely, from like Sunday until now, I can see there's like a huge difference where everything is blooming, and it smells much better than my my usual stank when I'm running out in the farm, but it's definitely spring is here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. It's welcome too.
Yeah. Very nice. So are you going to do more than one margarita, or are you going to drink two?
Oh, man. I'm trying to actually trim up a little bit, so I'm going to call it at one.
Very nice.
Yeah. A new health kick.
Good for you. So I'm drinking an IPA, as is my tradition. It's from Medford Brewing Company, and it is called a...
Medford.
Medford. It's called Navigator. So it's pretty good. I've had like 2 sips, and it's not bad.
I still don't understand the IPA fascination.
You don't? What is your beef with IPAs?
Well, as a kid, I got really sick on it once at a party. It was one of those nasty hangovers that just has hung with me till this day. I just can't even smell the stuff without getting nauseous. But beyond that, it's just such a strange scent and flavor. When I smell it, it smells like grapefruit. Do you get that smell? Grapefruit?
No, it tastes like just a stiff beer to me.
Huh. interesting. But then you go to all these local stores, and that's all you see in the freezer or the fridge. It's like it's all IPA. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah. They must be doing something right. But I definitely, this is good. So Navigator from Medford Brewing Company, or if you're local, Medford Brewing Company.
Metfa Malden.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. So any hiking for you? You gotten out there at all?
I have pushed myself to hike without poles now, and I made it up to, Welch Dickey's right there in the backyard, so I'm always up there, as people probably guess by now. So I made it up to the ledges of Dickey, and I think that was Wednesday, and felt great. I felt like 100%, like I could carry weight, if I were carrying a litter or whatever. I felt fantastic. But the day before that and the day after that, I felt absolutely miserable. So I can't figure it out. I think it's maybe the weather. I hate to say it, but I might be one of these weather people that just complains about the weather. I can't figure it out. Every single day is different.
Well, don't push it too hard. Now, when you say you're not using poles anymore, like what do you, because I use hiking poles pretty much, unless I'm doing trail running, like I use poles for every hike. So are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Like we've hiked a million times, and I can't remember. Like, do you use poles normally or no?
I used to several years ago, but for search and rescue, you can't use them. So it took me a good, probably year to wean myself off of poles and to just rely on my legs for hiking. And now that I'm back, well, I've ditched them now, but for the last several weeks, I've had to use poles, and it was just so annoying. I'm like, oh man, I'm back to the poles again. But yeah, so I finally ditched them. For me, that's a huge step forward in this recovery.
Yeah. I remember years ago, like we hiked, and you had those those old ski poles with the bamboo. Yeah, those things were cool.
Yeah, bamboo, and then the World War II mountain. What's it? What's the division? The 10th Mountain Division ski poles. I found a pair of vintage Army, ARMEE ski poles, and I use those all the time. They were jet white. Oh man, I still have them. They're beautiful.
Yeah, those things are cool.
Oh yeah, they're like 5 pounds per pole.
Yeah.
So you're really getting jacked up. I miss those days, but yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we have the gear list that I put together, which is pretty much like, I'm on all like the gear sites, and like I typically like try to get like a lot of the newer stuff, but like I do notice like we'll have to put together a gear list for you, because you've got more of a sort of eclectic, like you're not like the typical like ultralight, like you've got like a lot of like older stuff but it's cool stuff.
It's a freak show. It's totally crazy what's in my pack.
Like your backpack itself is like an old school backpack too. Like that thing's pretty burly.
Absolutely. My packs are held together by tie wraps and super glue at this point. Yeah. No, I'm not joking. I am never going to get rid of these packs. I will be buried with these packs.
Well, for me, it's good because like I see that pack and I'm like, there's Stomp. I can spot that thing from a mile away. So,
yeah.
But it's good, and we've the way that we've gotten to know each other over the years. It's a friendship, and tonight is basically talking about hiking and friendship. So we're gonna transition into a segment with Ben and Hayley from the Hiking Buddies group, and we're gonna do an episode next week about COVID. And I've been thinking about this a lot, Stomp, and the direction that the world's going in right now is really confusing, and I feel like in the last year and a half or so, we've as a society, we've gotten a lot less trustful, and we've been more disconnected than we ever have. So I wanted to do a segment, and I've actually used the Hiking Buddy group to make some connections, and I was really impressed with the experience. So I wanted to sit down with Hayley and Ben to kind of get their perspective, because they basically oversee the group. It's a Facebook meetup group for hiking, and I wanted to sit down and talk with them to get an understanding about sort of the origins of the group and get their perspective about making connections on the trail and finding friends to hike with. So I thought it was a really great conversation. Definitely excited to have them.
Yeah, sounds great. Can't wait to hear it.
Cool. So let's kick it off with that segment, and then we'll come back and transition into some search and rescue.
Sounds good.
SLASR's hiking topic of the week.
All right, so I'd like to welcome Hayley and Ben from the Hiking Buddies New Hampshire 48 Facebook group. We've had a couple of guests sit in for shows, but you're our very first dedicated segment, so welcome and thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. This is my first podcast, so a lot of firsts.
Same.
Awesome. So welcome. And I wanted to have you on because I use this group, and which was, I think when I talked about my experience with Hiking Buddies, I had said at the time that I was getting out of my comfort zone. And the reason why I said that is because I typically am a solo hiker, or I hike with just a couple of friends that I've known for years. And I had a really great experience with Hiking Buddies. And I do feel like one of the most common issues that people bring up is trying to find people to hike with. So I wanted to do a segment and talk to you a little bit about Hiking Buddies, and then a little bit just about, in general, what are some of the things that people can do to vet hiking partners, and then also, a little bit more resources around just getting friendships started in the hiking community. Because I found when I started hiking that none of my friends cared about hiking. They just looked at me like I was a lunatic going up there hiking in the woods. So I'm happy to have you both here. And I guess I wanted to start off a little bit finding out some background about both of you for around hiking. So I guess, Hayley, maybe if you could start, could you just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your hiking experience and, what you're currently working on as far as, your hiking pursuits?
Sure. So I started hiking when I was a kid with my mom. And I really didn't hike for a long time, up until maybe 2 years ago. And the old breakup story, I went through a breakup and found the woods because it was something to do. And I discovered the 48 4,000 footers and was like, oh, I guess I'll try that out. And so now I'm at 47 out of 48. I've been saving one because I'm a lazy hiker. It's just been kind of a good experience to get out there and get my body moving. I work night shift, so it's really important for me to be out in the daylight as much as I can. Hiking's just been kind of a thing that I can keep my mind busy.
Now, when you work the night shift, have you ever just worked an overnight and then gone right out and hiked?
I have never done that, but a bunch of our buddies have, and I've commented every single time about how I have drool running down my face while they're hiking. So yeah. I have never done that, but people do it.
Yeah. I worked an overnight shift like years ago, probably for, I think, like 2 months. I used to work at a rental car place at Logan Airport, and I was complete garbage by the time I got done. I would sleep in the afternoon, so it was tough for me.
Definitely. I get nauseous hiking anyway because I'm out of shape half the time, but adding post-night shift is not very helpful.
Yeah. Now, what's the last 4,000 footer that you have to do?
I have Kerrigan left.
Oh, okay. All right. So were you avoiding that this winter and waiting to avoid the road walk?
Yes, I was.
Oh, very nice.
Lazy hiker in my finest.
Yeah, no, I've broken trail on that road before, and it's not fun in the winter.
I believe it.
I want to go.
Well, yeah, we'll take you, Ben. Now, have you done overnights, or you just do day hiking?
Yeah, I actually did the Zealand Bonds as an overnight, like an out and back. And we stayed at the Gio campsite, which was a blast. We did like the sunset at Mount Bond, and it was great. It was freezing because it was September, so it was like 17 degrees out that night. But I'm getting more into backpacking. I've kind of gotten some more stuff over the last year to be able to do more of that this summer.
Nice. Yeah, I am planning on doing I'm sort of the same transition. Like, I've been a day hiker for years, but I've started to get into the backpacking a little bit, and now I'm trying to do 2 or 3 nights out in the trail. So we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Ben, can you talk a little bit about your hiking background?
Well, my first hike wasn't a great experience, but I was a teenager, and it was heading up the Delaware Water Gap with my brother, both of us alone to meet up another group. Never hiked before, overpacked like dramatically for this hike, and had way too much for the route up. And I remember just saying, "I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again." And then I got married, and so sometimes wives have just this way of getting you to do things you don't want to do. And so she took me on some hikes, and I was like, "Why are we doing this? There's no restaurant at the top. There's no there's no ride down." And I didn't. The first couple hikes I did, I got to say I did them begrudgingly, but then. And then I think I just started to hit that period where it started to make sense. It wasn't about necessarily, being finished. It was about kind of the journey. And so I started enjoying it and thinking about my son, who was becoming a teenager. And I felt like we were kind of disconnecting a little bit as he got older. And I said, hey, maybe I'll take him on some epic hike up in New Hampshire. And try to, better connect with him. He's turning into that age where he's starting to rebel a little bit. And so I planned a hike that I found online, which was just Lincoln Woods over to, the Geo campsite. We did Geo. We actually did the Twins on the way through. And then we did the Bonds, and we came back out through the Death March back to the car on the loop. Nice. And it was a long hike, and we made 2 nights out of it. Probably could have done it in one, but we made 2 nights out of it just to spend some time together. And then 2 years later, I'm sitting in a house that we rented, sort of bored up in Bretton Woods, and grabbed a book off the shelf called the 4,000 Footers. And I said, oh, some of these mountains that I climbed are on this list. So I yell over to my wife and I say, hey, I think I'm going to climb all these mountains. And she's like, that's nice, honey. And because I verbalized it and said I was going to do it, I'm now thick in it and going to finish.
Exactly. Once you get into it, you start telling people like you're doing the 4,000 footers, you're kind of committed. So
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to being at the finish line with Hayley when she finishes Kerrigan. So we got to figure out a date.
Definitely.
Yeah, that'll be fun. How far along are you been?
I've got 33.
Very nice. So you'll be there soon enough as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I also haven't finished. I've got 47, but I'm on hold until I finish the 52 with a view and the terrifying 25. So I'm going to finish all 3 lists in a single hike. So I've got that going on this summer. So
what is the 48 that's on all 3 lists?
Well, so the way it's going to work is I'm going to finish the 52 with a view on Mount Pemigewasset,
mm-hmm.
and then I'll hike from Pemigewasset up the Flume Slide Trail, which will finish the terrifying 25, go across Liberty, and then down over to Lonesome Lake, and then up Cannon and finish the 4,000 footer. So that'll be one 25-mile hike over the course of a day. So
fantastic.
I've got a couple more terrifying 25s and I think like 3 more 52 with a view. So we'll probably sometime in August I'll finish up.
Fantastic.
Did you plan on finishing on Cannon so that people could join you that aren't necessarily hikers?
I did. So I didn't think about it that much. I was just plugging away and I would just pick a peak. And then I had originally planned to hike Cannon. We did an overnight in the winter and our plan was to do the Kinsman's on the first day. Then we stayed out by Lonesome Lake that night. And the second day we were going to go up Cannon and finish, but we got hit with a blizzard. So we just had to go back down. And I think at some point I just decided, I was like, I'll just hold that for exactly the reason you're talking about, is it's a great hike because you can go up, you can have family meet you who may not want to hike it, and then they can just take the tram down, which is what's going to happen with my family, I'm sure.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm planning to finish the 48 in August as well. I've been avoiding the Prezzies the entire time because I want to do a Prezzie hike for my final. So it's been very difficult because I'm always invited to hike the presidentials. Everybody wants to do Washington or, Pierce, and I've put them all off. I've got Lake in the Clouds set up. I want to take my time and not rush it and do it in one day. And so we're going to stay in Lake in the Clouds and just enjoy the experience and then finish up.
That'll be fun. Now, will you go for I always am curious about this because I've never done a Prezi Traverse, but are you planning on going northbound or southbound?
I haven't decided yet because I've heard from several people which way is quote unquote better and which one's better to end on. So I'm not sure. All I know is there's a Mount Washington stop in the middle that I'm going to soak up the whole time I'm there. Hopefully get some blue skies and hopefully everything will be open and the lodge will be open because I sort of want the hiker experience, sharing a meal and, snoring in everybody's ear and everything that comes with that.
Yeah. You'll have to bring your earplugs in there. That's my advice if you're going to stay in the hut. But I'm thinking I guess if I was going to do that and stay at lakes, if you do it southbound, day one will be like the long day. And then you've got the cabin to stay over. And then day two is not going to be as hard, which is probably preferable. And then if you go northbound, it'll be a shorter day one and then day two will be longer. So it's kind of pick your poison. Do you want the pain on day one or do you want it on day two?
I don't want any pain. If you ask Hayley, I'm not too into my pain tolerance level on the incline. Like I'm still not there yet where, there are points in the hike that I do not appreciate. So, yeah, all the upward parts of the hike.
All right. Well, you'll have to hit me up when you are getting to the finish. I want to know which direction you end up going on the Prezi Traverse because I'm always curious. It's interesting to hear people's thoughts.
Sure.
Cool. All right. So I want to get into the origin story of the Hiking Buddies, but before we get into that, I do, it's a search and rescue show. So I want to get from both of you either your most sort of terrifying moment or what was your sort of closest brush to having call 911 and say, pull me out of these mountains.
Do you want me to go first, Hayley? Because you know where I'm going with this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Everybody always has a story, so I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't think I have one where I was close to calling 911, but it was pretty close to Hayley having to drag me out of the mountain. So I did isolation with a buddy group, and this was probably one of my earlier buddy hikes after starting the group. And I think our second hike together, Hayley, that you were a part of with me.
That was first. That was our first.
Our first. Oh, yeah. Great. So I made a great impression. All right. Fantastic. So we took Glen Boulder and we decided to take Glen Boulder back because it was going to be so wet on Rocky Branch. So we decided to do Glen Boulder there and back to isolation, which is a pretty good size hike. At least I thought so at the time. And so the first problem was, and there were many problems I had on this hike, but the first problem was that after I started going up the mountain, I realized that I left my entire lunch in the refrigerator for the day. So I had almost no food on me. I had a baggie of goldfish for the hike. So that was my first problem. My second problem was that I brought enough water to get me on the way back so we could stop and grab some water out of a stream that was on the route. So I brought enough water to get there and then get back to the stream. And it was a pretty hot day, so I even had frozen like a water bottle to bring with me so I could have some cold water.
Yep.
When I got to before I even got to the stream, I found out that my life straw was completely clogged. It didn't matter how hard I tried to suck the water out of that straw, it was not coming out. Mm-hmm. And I didn't bring a backup. And it was a hot day and I ran out of water about the top of isolation or just after we had turned around. And it's a long hike back Glen Boulder on a hot day. When you don't,
and there's not there's no options on water once you get out there.
Well, there was, after we got past that little walk downstream, I don't recall what it was called, but it wasn't too far off the peak. But the water that I had frozen half the bottle. It wasn't melting. Like I don't know. It was a hot day, but it just was not melting fast enough for as thirsty as I was, and I had no access to water. So it was a long hike back. I was dehydrated. I was tired. I was hungry. I tried saving the goldfish as long as I could. And when I started eating them, it was like it turned into toothpaste in my mouth because I had no moisture. Thankfully, Al gave me a couple of those goo packs, which is pretty much what I lived on for the day, was 2 goo packs. Hayley was going to let me die. She was just like, I don't care whether you make it or not. This is my granola bar. But I did eventually, get to the bottom, but it was miserable. And it was the closest I've been to where I think I was going to potentially pass out on the trail. And I think I complained so much that Hayley was ready to get rid of me by the time we got down.
So Hayley, why didn't you give him your water?
I offered my life straw, and you were like, "No, the stream is too far down. I'm not going back up there." Something along the lines of that.
I was pretty delusional at the time. I think I was dehydrated, so I don't know. I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's scary. No, yeah. Are you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Hayley.
Oh, he was like really struggling with cramps. It was not fun for him. I was like, "I'm sorry, Ben. I have nothing for you."
Yeah, that's tough. Now, or did you throw the life straw away? Because I never used a life straw, but I've been using the Sawyer Mini, which I find is much more effective and much better capacity.
I still have another life straw bottle. I think for me, the lesson will just be to just make sure I have a backup, like a new straw in the bag at all times, that if I need I need the backup, I can just pop one off and put the next one on. I like the convenience of it. I'm a lazy hiker too, and I like to just scoop my water, stick my top on, and drink. It's just so quick with that life straw bottle, but I've learned the hard way that you should never go with just one straw on the trail. So if anyone listening is using the life straw bottle and you haven't had to replace the straw yet, don't wait until you're on an 80-degree day on isolation before you decide or find out the hard way that you wish you had a second straw. So just get one, throw it in the bag, and keep it with you at all times.
Yeah, and I always say this is controversial, and people will disagree with me, but I will say if I always have a filter with me, and I personally prefer the Sawyer Mini filter. I haven't looked at the life straw, but worst case scenarios, if you do have an issue with your filter, I would scan the water source a little bit to see if there's anything in there that might cause you an issue, but I'll drink straight from the stream if I need to versus risking dehydration. So people say don't, and I know that you can get ridiculously sick quickly, but to me, I'd rather risk that than the issues that can come with dehydration.
Yeah, call it an experience. It was the first, I think it was my first bout with dehydration that I've had. So, I think the next time I'll be more than happy to drink whatever stream water I can find versus the alternative.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very good. Now, Hayley, what's your closest brush with getting in trouble out there?
So I have 2 stories, and I'll let you choose. I have one that's more severe that happened to a friend while I was on a hike. And one that was myself that's very less severe, like an ankle sprain. So I don't know.
Just flow. I'm interested in your friends. The worse, the better.
It was actually this past winter. And we were taking a hike up to Monroe. We went up the Ammo Trail. And I had read the trail reports. Everyone said light traction for the ammo is fine for this day. So we're heading up. This was like right after Valentine's Day when we had that freeze overnight. Mm-hmm. So we were heading up, got to the Lake of the Clouds Hut just fine, pretty quickly actually. And it was like a crystal clear day, 0 wind, like maybe 5 miles per hour for wind. And we were looking at Washington and we're like, it's right there. And this weather is perfect. So it was me and 2 of my coworkers who are experienced hikers. And we decided to start making our way up to Washington and forego doing Monroe. So as we're making that cross over that snowfield between Lake of the Clouds Hut and Washington, I was noticing that the micro spikes that we were wearing just weren't good enough for the slope that we were on. So I kept saying to them, guys, I really just don't feel good about this. And they were like, it looks like it's getting flatter up there. So we would take a couple more steps and I would be like, I'm terrified of heights. So I was like, I don't know if this is because I'm terrified of heights that I'm so uncomfortable right now, or if we're getting ourselves into a sticky situation. So anyway, I I finally like got very serious and was like, we need to turn around. I don't feel comfortable. So we turned around and started heading back to the Lake of the Clouds hut. And my friend misstepped and took a long sliding fall down Washington, about 100 feet, maybe 200 feet, yard sailed, lost everything, her trekking poles, her water bottle, ended up doing like somersaults all the way down, stopped herself with one of her trekking poles, used it like an ice axe. We should have had ice axes, but used it like an ice axe, and like bent it to a 90-degree angle. It looked awful, but it stopped her, thankfully. And so at that point, we were pretty far up above her, and there was no safe way to get down to her. She was fine. She yelled up and was like laughing in shock, kind of. Yeah. So my friend and I made our way back, and we ended up just kind of meeting in a middle ground spot. And I mean, it was the most terrifying experience I've ever had, watching someone fall and not stop and not be able to help them. She was very lucky to be able to walk out of there. The whole time that we were walking to meet her, I'm like, she has a femur fracture, 100%, and she's just in shock and isn't feeling it yet. Like, we're going to meet up with her and it's going to be a mess. But she ended up being okay, just had like some scrapes on her face. Ended up getting like a pretty swollen eye, like around her eye. But we regrouped. I sobbed when I like reconnected with her. She was like, "Why are you so upset?" I'm like, "You have no idea how traumatic that was." But anyway, I learned so much from that hike. One being the trail conditions were not what they were the day before because we had a freeze. I learned that you got to have the right equipment for the conditions, obviously, and to just trust your gut immediately instead of waiting 5 minutes. Because I think that we got to a point that if we had turned around 5 minutes earlier, we would have been past that tough part.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you ask me about hiking Mount Washington, the conventional wisdom is, you hike up the ammo side and you come up from that side. Lake of the Clouds to Mount Washington is not that difficult. I mean, it looks really close, but it's a lot farther, but it's not really difficult. But in the situation you're talking about where, you've got a quick freeze and everything is iced over and you don't have crampons, then you can get into trouble over there. And that's probably like, those conditions probably pop up in that area, maybe like a couple of times a year at the most. People are going to listen to this and say like, "Oh, it's not that bad. I've done that hike." But I can't imagine, like, there are some sections there where if it freezes over and it's just solid ice, you are going to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm. The angle of the terrain was just not right for the equipment that we had.
Yeah, interesting. And it is so tempting. Like, you get to Lake of the Clouds and you look up at Washington and you're like, it's just right there, but it's really a mile and a half or so to get up there.
Yeah. And we had made it up to the Lake of the Clouds so quickly, and we were like, this is like, we have the whole day. And the conditions are perfect, and everything lined up except for the fact that we were overlooking the equipment that we had. So I learned a lot.
Yeah, and so many times in the winter, like I can't count the number of times. I always have my crampons in the car, and I'll just sit there and I'll be like, "Do I take them? Do I not take them?" And I'd be like, "All right, I'm taking my spikes and my snowshoes, and I'll just leave the crampons in the car." And like 99% of the time, it's no problem. But it's that one time, like I haven't run into it, but it sounds like you guys probably hit that one time where you needed them.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, same thing. I had my snowshoes in the car that had crampons on the bottom. I had the equipment, I just didn't bring it. So
yeah, it's it doesn't pay to go ultralight in the winter. So that's glad your friend is okay, but that is a scary one. So very interesting. Great. So I did want to move on here to talk a little bit about the origin story of Hiking Buddy. So just as a refresher, Ben and Hayley are the admins of the Hiking Buddies the Hampshire 48 Facebook group, which is a very large meetup group on Facebook that connects hikers. So, Ben, could you give me a little bit of the background on how Hiking Buddies came to be?
Yeah, sure. So similar to you, when I did start hiking, I did quickly find out that most of my friends are not hikers and not interested in hiking. I had one friend that Phil, who is a great hiker, very fast, and a great guy, and who I would normally try to hike with, but also one of the busiest guys I know when it comes to his weekends being filled. And he's a family man, which is fantastic. And he just finds himself busy. And if there's an overcast or a cloud in the sky, he usually doesn't want to head up there. So I said to him one day, I said, I'm thinking about creating a group because I just need to find some other hikers, like somebody or a couple people that I can just hike the 48 with if I'm going to get this done. Because I didn't feel necessarily qualified to always hike solo, and B, I just don't enjoy hiking solo. The time goes by faster to me when I have somebody to talk to. It's just a personality thing, I think, more than anything. I have hiked solo. I just personally don't enjoy it as much as getting to know somebody on the way up and the way down. So I set up the group. I decided to do a couples hike and do one of the easier hikes where he could bring his wife and I would bring my wife, and we would open it up to any couples who wanted to hike with us, and started sort of pushing the group online to people I knew. And not many people I knew joined, but all of a sudden I think Facebook started putting it up as a post or something where other people were starting to find the group. And so we did a couples hike, and then the group just kept growing. And we've had some, I wouldn't say trial and error, but just a couple things have changed over time to try to accommodate the growth of the group and to be efficient in connecting people. And we're now doing, I don't know, about 20 hikes a week that people are setting up through our page. It's a steady inflow of both hikes and pictures from hikes. And we're coming up on 1 year on June 7th from when I started the group, and we're already, I bet you we'll be over 4,000 people by the 1 year anniversary. And I think that's says something about the desire that people have to hike together. Because if you look at some of these other groups, I mean, some of them are mega groups and they have 30,000 people in them, but several of the groups have been around for 10 years, and they're somewhat duplicative of other groups. And so they're running 2,500 people or 2,000 people, and they've been there for 10 years. We have a very defined mission and a very defined purpose, and we don't allow a lot of outside noise to come into the group. The group is for setting up hikes and then kind of, I guess you could say, sharing those hikes with people, and nothing else. So no conversations about boots and equipment or weather or, whether you should stack rocks or feed the birds or listen to music on the trails. Like we just figure that there are plenty of groups that are meeting that need of general conversation and advice. And our group is for people who are looking to find people to hike with and want to sort of avoid all the noise and sort of get right to it and say, hey, I want to hike this mountain. I'm this pace on this day. And, is there anybody out there that's a fit that's available that would like to come with me? And so far it's been really, really successful. And we can touch on that later if you want, but.
Yeah, it certainly works, and we'll talk a little bit more about sort of how the group's rules function and things like that. But I guess I am curious, Hayley, how did you get connected to Ben and then get involved with Hiking Buddies?
So I think I saw it posted on one of the other groups, and I was like, I'll go check that out because I don't have many people to hike with. And so I ended up hiking with Ben, the isolation trip, and had such a great time meeting new people. And so Ben and I just kind of kept chatting in that group chat. We went on a couple other hikes together. And then, the growth that we've had from this group, happened pretty quickly. So Ben asked for a little bit of help with just doing admin stuff. So, I kind of jumped in on that, and it's been fun.
Great. And do you have any thoughts? I never really worried about this. I honestly, I kind of love solo hiking. And I think, in my own situation, like I've got 3 kids that are very close in age and a big family and a busy job. And I always feel like solo hiking to me is sort of like my chance to take a deep breath and enjoy, the wilderness and the mountains and the views. And I've never really worried too much about like whether I hike in a group or I hike with friends. Like if I can find friends, I'll go with them. And I love that. I prefer it, but I have no problem going out and hiking solo in most conditions. But can you talk from your perspective? Do you have any thoughts on why it may be difficult to connect with people to hike?
Yeah, I think that I know, at least from my my experiences, that a lot of my friends don't hike. And it's like kind of hard. I don't know. When I was like first starting out, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to keep up with them. So I don't really want to go with that person. So I think that either people have the same kind of idea that you did with not wanting to, just having some time to yourself out there versus literally just being afraid to go with other people because you're worried about pace and your fitness level and all of that. So I think it can be really challenging to find people to hike with that you're compatible with as a hiker. So I think, that's kind of what's been so great about this group growing so much is that we've had more people that are slower hikers and more people that are faster hikers. So you can kind of categorize where you are and find people that will be able to join you for that.
Yeah, then that is one thing that really stood out to me when I've been I've been involved in hiking groups and social media for a long time, and I feel like the super athletes and the speedsters take up all the oxygen in the room a lot of times when it comes to those discussions. And that's one of the things I love about your group is that there's a lot of options for people that are hiking at different paces, or they're not so sort of like driven on like, let's complete the list and I've got to get 9 peaks on one day. And, there's a huge population of people that are just looking to have a nice fun day, meet people, and they're not worried about doing 3-4 mile an hour pace for their hikes, which is great.
We have both.
Yes, we do. And we try to encourage people to create a group chat before the hikes and have a very honest, open discussion about pace, kind of the expectations of the hike, when to meet, that kind of stuff. So I think that setting that expectation that is what you do prior to a buddy hike has really helped people feel more comfortable with, okay, I'm not going to get left behind on this hike or things like that.
One thing I want to point out too is that we probably see the most pictures from the more avid hikers because they're hiking frequently. So you do kind of get, you see a lot of the same faces. Probably every third hike is sort of a lot of what I would call our core people that are putting up buddy hikes, twice a week. But there is this whole, and I would say larger segment of our group, I would say the majority of our group, who are interested in hiking and want to hike, but they're not going to hike every weekend. They're not going to hike maybe even every month. They just enjoy to hike, and they're nervous about joining a hike because they don't feel like they're as experienced or as fast as other hikers. And the way that I know that is that every single time somebody posts on our page, hey, I'm looking to hike, Mount Pierce. I'm very slow. I take my time. I'm like to take pictures. I'm a little, out of shape, but I have a good time. If you're interested, and they get the most responses. They have, I usually have to get on a side chat with them and say, you really need to cap the number of people that are coming onto this hike with you, and have that conversation. So I know they're out there. The thing is just having some of them have the confidence to set up the hikes, because I think a lot of them are waiting for the hikes to show up on a date they can make it and they want to jump in, which honestly is the best way in the beginning when it's your first one, is to jump on somebody else's hike. Because it kind of takes some of the responsibility of coordinating and everything off your shoulders, and you just sort of show up. But as you do one of those hikes afterwards, we try to encourage people like, look, on your next one, think about, you pick the mountain, you pick the date, you pick the time, and let people know that you're a slower hiker, and you'll find new friends, you'll find good people that are interested in hiking, and they'll be your pace. And so, for anybody that's listening that's part of the group, if you are on that kind of verge of feeling like you're too slow, please, think about putting a hike together, because there's a lot of people who are sitting on the sides waiting for you to set up a hike. And we see that every time.
Yeah, and the volume of people saying, I'm setting up a hike is increased from what I've seen over the last 6 months or so. I've been keeping an eye on the site. But Ben, you had talked about this a little bit, and like I said, I've been involved in social media hiking groups for a long time. And if you have an open forum, like, you get a ton of drama and a lot of like repetitive topics around, like, kindness rocks, and don't feed the gray jays, and don't kick over rocks, and all this nonsense. And, you guys have a very specific mission, like you talked about, but I've seen you've been challenged a couple of times about like, oh, just let this slide, or let us just put this one time. Can you talk a little bit about like how, and you're holding the line, which I think is the right thing to do because it's working for you, but can you talk a little bit about, how you deal with that pressure sometimes?
Yeah. So most of the pushback or issues that we had were in the beginning of the group prior to us. We now actually vet the post before we allow them to go on. So it needs to be approved by one of the 3 admins before it actually gets placed on the page. We're pretty good about getting to it quickly, but in the beginning we let every post go on. So it became more of this post doesn't meet our rules, so we delete the post. And then occasionally we would get the post on the follow-up. Why did the admin delete my post? This group is, and people were not happy about having their post deleted, despite the fact that, we tried to be very transparent about what was and was not allowed on the page. So now we do vet them. We try to reach out to everybody when we delete their post before it even gets on the page. We try to reach out and we say, hey, look, either you need to put a mountain and a date on this. It can't just be, hey, I'd like to hike. Who'd like to hike with me? Because you don't need 300 people saying, I'd like to hike with you with no plan. So that's one that we run into quite often is, you have to have a plan. Or if you don't have a plan, then just, jump into somebody else's hike. But that keeps the page from just becoming an intro session of everybody introducing themselves. And the second thing is, there's so much drama on some of these other, hiking groups. And to be honest with you, it's tiring. I mean, I have a hard time even, reading comments on some of the other hiking groups because, frankly, some people are just keyboard warriors and, they have, I don't know what the issue is nowadays where people need to attack people for asking a question or whatever. But, we just didn't want any of that on our site. So we have this magic little remove button that we can use. So we try to keep it positive and we don't like removing people, but it is sort of a first offense, removal. And for lack of a better way to say it, if you can't get along with people online, we don't want to take the chance that you can't get along on the trail. So if you're that type of person that wants to fight with people, we really assume that other people aren't going to want to hike with you. So we remove you. And I think it keeps the page more positive. And it is, one way that we can somewhat vet the people that are in the page. And I think it's worked for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know when I go on there, I know it's I'm looking to see who's organizing hikes, and then you get a lot of really great pictures on there of different. So I'll go on there and check it out and say like, okay, I know that there was a group going on a certain mountain, and let me see if they posted any pictures, and I can see if there's any monorail left there or whatever. So I've used it a couple of different ways. But Hayley, I wanted to ask you, the group's been around for a year. You've got dozens of hikes that happen over the course of a week. Can you talk a little bit about what you're most proud of regarding the impact that you've seen from the group? Have there been like relationships that have been started, or maybe give me something from your perspective on that you've seen where you look at and you say, wow, this is really something I didn't expect, but it's amazing.
Yeah. So I can think of a specific group of people that more recently have started using the group and all met on the group, and they have hike after hike after hike together. One of the girls just finished the 48 in like 2 months, mostly using our buddy hiking page to find friends to go with. So I think that my most proud moment is just seeing the relationships that are made and like continue. I have hiked, a lot of my buddy hikes have been at least 1 or 2 people overlapping. And I think that it's really cool to at least have a comfort of knowing some people that might be there. And I don't know, I think that seeing people connect over and over and over again, some people even call like their buddy hikers like their best friends now. It's just a really cool thing to watch unfold.
Yeah. Have there been any weddings yet?
Not yet.
Ooh, not yet. Did you see that post I put up a while back? I had this premonition that someday the buddies are all going to be on the bonds, and we're going to have our first buddy wedding right on top of the bonds. I'm not sure who it is. I joked with one of actually the same person that Hayley's speaking about right now, who just finished the 48, and she actually said to me that she did all 48 with buddies that she met on the buddy page, and she did it rather quickly as well. But I joked with her because she's now dating one of the guys from the group, and I said, "Who knows? We might be on top of West Bond or one of the bonds at some point." And she laughed, and for sake of not embarrassing her, I won't go any further. But I tell my wife all the time, that it brings me joy. Like every single time I see somebody post their pictures, tell their story, say that they met so-and-so and had such a great time. When I see them hiking together again, it's hard to really explain it. I don't necessarily, take credit for it, but I do feel like, the group is a conduit for connecting people that may have never met otherwise. And there's a couple, ladies that hike both through the page and now directly on their own, who are the best of friends, and I still get to see their posts, and it's just really cool, and I just think about myself and all the friends that I've made and all the people that I've hiked with just over the last year, and I never would have met Hayley as an example. She lives in Maine, like we never would have crossed paths. And so many more. Julie, the other admin, is fantastic. And just so many people have been brought together by something as simple as a Facebook group and a love for the mountains. And those two things together have just created a great combination for bringing people together. So I'm just proud of the group overall. And, when I see somebody who does their first buddy hike, I think that's my favorite. When they say, "Hey, I did my first buddy hike today and I met Laura and Tim and John, and we hiked, Pierce or Moose or whatever," and I see their pictures, they're smiling, they had a great time. Sometimes I'll jump on the chat and I'll send them a message and just say, "Hey, how was the hike?" Because I just eat it up. Like I want them to tell me it was great and that, that they're happy and they've made some new friends. And I don't know, it's a good feeling.
Yeah. And I've been impressed watching the group grow over time. And I will be honest, like the first time I joined up and I was like, yeah, I could definitely use this as a resource, but I was like, this has the potential for disaster because, from my perspective, I was like, how are you supposed to vet people? And I understand now that I've watched it, like people are very upfront and, very clear on what they need. But I guess even more from a safety perspective, and Hayley, I would probably ask this question to you, is as a female hiker, from your perspective, one of the things that would probably be most concerning to me is like, how do you vet people in the group to make sure and I don't really know how else to say this, but like, how do you make sure you're avoiding creepers?
Yeah. So we are very upfront with the fact that we are not vetting anyone other than the people that we personally hiked with. So we make that very clear just so that people don't feel like, okay, anyone in this group is safe to hike with. But that being said, we always encourage people to have at least 3 people for the first meetup. That way, if one person happens to be a creeper, you have someone else there for them to attack first.
Exactly. Hopefully somebody's slower than you, right?
You can run. Oh, geez.
Just kidding.
Attack first.
For safety purposes, just so you have someone else there. As a female hiker, I have run into a couple times, like my first time meeting Ben, I'm like, okay, I hope that this other girl who's hiking with us is here before the guys, because like that could be weird. And then it just kind of naturally is okay. If you're feeling unsafe about anything, you can stay in your car and have it locked until another person that you have been chatting with or something can be there. But we haven't run into a problem with anyone being unsafe or creepy or anything like that. And I am always more than happy to share my experiences with the hikers that I've met and say like, hey, this person is great. Actually, one of the people that I am closest with now and hike with often doesn't even have a picture on his Facebook, and I was terrified to meet him. And he ended up actually he's like a 70-year-old guy who's the most jolly, friendly person ever, and just doesn't have a Facebook profile. So I always say, hey, if you run into so and so, like he's good. If you want to hike with him, like I will vet the people that I have gotten to know.
Yeah, and I remember like again, I've used Hiking Buddies one time, and the reason why I used it was because, as I said, I don't mind hiking solo, but there's certain things, especially winter hiking, like I was going to hike the Tri-Pyramids, and I was just kind of like, if something happens, it was going to be on a Friday. I was like, there's going to be nobody out there. And if something happens and I'm by myself, there's no cell connection, I'm going to be screwed. And I was like, I run this dumb podcast. Like I cannot get a search and rescue call from me because I'll have to just disappear off the face of the earth. So I was like, how am I going to find someone to hike? And then you guys popped up and I was like, that's right. I joined this group. And sure enough, George, who's a friend of mine that I met through Hiking Buddies, popped up and he was like, I'm going hiking. And I was like, I'm working on my winter 48. And he was doing Tri-Pyramids. And I was like, I'll do it. And then I'm like, oh, this is going to be weird because I'm kind of awkward anyway. And I was like, it's going to be weird hiking with someone all day that I don't know, but he was a cool guy. I did a little bit of like, sorry, George, but I just did put his name in and I just did arrest and police to make sure like there was nothing there. And his Facebook page looked fine, but he's awesome. He's like gritting. He's like this young 21-year-old kid that's like a super hiker. And then I was like, oh, how am I going to keep up with this guy? But it was perfect. We connected well and his pace was perfect. And I felt a lot safer because I wasn't out there solo. And I knew like if something happened, like I got someone to back me up, which was great. And I'm definitely going to hook up with him again to go hiking this summer. I'll call you George, but, but yeah, it was awesome. So that's what I did for sort of like vetting is I Googled him to make sure there was no police record. And I looked at his Facebook page and saw he had pictures of mountains and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Definitely.
That is one of the beautiful things about the group too, is, a lot of people are, say that they're nervous about hiking with someone they don't know, or what am I going to talk about? And once you get over that first, I call it maybe the first quarter mile, if that, it's fun. I mean, you literally can talk about anything and everything because there is no history. You are finding out about the person. It makes the time go by. It's interesting. Your conversations go all over the place. Different conversations depending on who you're hiking with. You can have 5 buddy hikes and have 5 different total experiences and conversations on the way up and the way down, depending on, where you connect and what similarities and differences you have with the person you're with. So, you went in saying, hey, I'm a little awkward. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. And I'm sure you guys chatted for hours, getting to know each other. And it's amazing. And as you said, and as Hayley said, we don't vet people, but whether you're hiking with a buddy or you're hiking out in the woods by yourself on a solo hike, there's always the potential for a creeper or somebody out there. There is a level of personal responsibility that we, have to sort of assume that people on our page are using as well. And that make sure that you're in a group of 3 or more on a first meet. B, do your Google searching, scan their Facebook page. see if they have some sort of normality. And then lastly, if there's anything that just doesn't feel right or that you're just nervous about, then you don't go. It's that simple. I mean, you have to kind of do your own homework, be prepared, make sure you have enough people with you, and then decide whether you're comfortable with it or not. And so there is, just like all things, there is a level of personal responsibility here that, we're just, like I said before, a conduit. So we just bring people together, but people still need to do their homework and be smart. That's really their everybody's responsibility.
And just like any other hike, like if you're going, you should leave your plans with someone that you know and trust. And I actually just hiked with a new friend that is on one of the search and rescue teams, and he said that he gave his dad a list of everyone that was on the hike that day. So that their name because it's on their Facebook, so you can at least you can give your person, whoever you're leaving your hiking plans with, the names of other people too, if you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like to me, like if I'm thinking this through, I want to get in on a group that has multiple people, 3-4 people plus. I want to make sure that I vet everybody. I want to make sure that I'm sharing my hiking plans as well as the people that I'm meeting and the information on how to look at their information online with my loved ones or for friends, so that it's very clear to somebody who knows me where I'm going and who I'm going with.
Right. And we do creep everybody's Facebook page when they, for the most part, when they try to join the group. There's been a few that, hey, listen, this is not, this is a Facebook page, not a democracy. There's no rules. I report to no one. If there's something about your page that makes me uncomfortable with you, I'm sorry, but I just don't allow you into the group. And it's, it's just another way to try to filter out. I mean, if you just created your page 2 weeks ago, Facebook's been around a long time. If you've got 3 friends and you just created the Facebook 2 weeks ago, you don't get in the group. It's just, we have some tight controls about some things to try to avoid, potential fake profiles and so forth. And, but for the most part, we find that hikers are good people, and, to just do, be safe, do your homework.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've seen plenty of drama on the internet with hikers, but like when you're out on the trail, everybody's very cool. And hikers, we're like vegans or CrossFitters. Like we always want to talk about hiking anyway. So you'll never run out of anything to talk about.
Right.
That's right.
So I guess long term, the group's growing. Obviously, you're definitely getting a lot of traction. What are the plans? Are you just going to keep growing and keeping the ship floating the way it's going, or are there any changes or updates that you plan to do in the future?
Well, we are growing, and it is becoming more and more work. My wife calls it my second full-time job, trying to keep up with updating the hikes and contacting people, and all day long I'm on chats with people, trying to explain why their post got deleted or how they, I get a lot of questions from a lot of people about setting things up, but for now we're just going to maintain it pretty much the way that we're running it. We did consider maybe adding an education part to the mission and then becoming a nonprofit. I think we're on hold with that for now, but trying to put some positive spin onto it in some way we could maybe make a larger impact with a pretty good force for good with 4,000 hikers. I think that's a good starting point, but that's a little bit on hold for the time being until, we're, like I said, we're not even a year in. So we don't want to put the cart before the horse here and see how this continues to kind of evolve. We are setting up our first ever event for our group beyond, the hikes. So I did want to talk about that because I'm pretty excited about it. And Hayley's been helping me set it up together. So is this a good time for me to kind of announce that, or do we want to plug that later?
Yeah, no, I think that, so I'm going to put in the show notes, obviously a link to the group. And, if you do have anything put together for this, like an event page or anything, we can definitely plug that. But yeah, if you want to give the audience details on what the plan is, I always want to party, so I'm in.
Yeah, that boy. So So we are super excited. I think we've been working on this for 4 months now, maybe 5 months, putting it together, trying to find a venue. But on September 11th of this year, there's the flags on the 48. I know in the morning a lot of people will be doing that. But in the evening, we are going to be somewhat taking over, at least at a certain time in the night, we'll be taking over the Twin Barns Brewery in Meredith, New Hampshire. So our event will start out with bands and live music, cornhole games, a lot of great food and drink, and just getting together and having a great time and meeting. This is your opportunity to kind of meet a lot of the buddies on the page, and then followed by sort of some another band and campfires and s'mores and an acoustic jam session around the fires with the buddies, and it's just going to be a ton of fun. And this is a great location. They have a big beer garden with little fireplaces and just picnic tables and stuff, like a big field basically that we can hang out in. And the first 100 people that register can camp on site for free. So if you want to go up and hike in the morning and then come to the party and then sleep right there on site, set up your tent after, the event's over and sleep on site, and then wake up in the morning and go hit some more mountains or go explore the lakes region, maybe go hike a Belknap. You'll be right there in the lakes region. And you'll have a bunch of buddies nearby that you can probably recruit to come with you the next day, even if they weren't planning on it. I'm sure they won't, all be making fantastic decisions by the end of the night. I don't know.
Oh yeah, and with COVID finishing up, people are they're just ready to party.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we pushed it to September, because we want to make sure that a lot of that stuff's in the clear and people have been vaccinated. But I think it's time, right? I mean, we're all chomping at the bit to have just an awesome time. And when I just think about so many of these great hikers, like having, sitting around a campfire and, singing, sing along songs or whatever we end up doing while we're there at night, like after the lights go out. I don't know. It's just going to be a great time. And, every time, I just started bringing this up on my last hike with some of the hikers to get some feedback, and they were all very excited about it. And, but they all asked, like, how much is it going to cost? How much is it going to cost for us to come? And, when we first started this, we said, we want to make this as low cost as possible. And then, we decided that we're trying to build a brand as well with the Hiking Buddies and kind of promote Hiking Buddies. So basically we're going to sell t-shirts. And if you buy a t-shirt, you get into the event. The t-shirt will be waiting for you at the event. It'll be a long sleeve tee, but it'll be waiting for you at the event. You come up, we check your name off a list. We give you your long sleeve t-shirt. You put it on, you're in. And so you're helping us promote, the group. It's a great group. You're already a part of the group. So promoting it isn't too hard. And then, the proceeds that we make from the shirts will help pay for the band and the location and everything that we need. And Twin Barns Brewery in Meredith, New Hampshire has been absolutely fantastic to work with. And we're really excited about the event.
Awesome. That sounds very cool. And my guess is that you're gonna well exceed 100 people, especially with the camping out overnight. That's going to be perfect for people. So I got to check my calendar because I usually do reach the beach around that time, but I think it may be the weekend before. But if there's no conflict, I'll definitely show up.
Yeah, we would love to have you. And the first 100 people can camp there, but we can have up to 500 people at the event.
Wow.
So we will cap out at 500 people. I don't know whether we'll get even close to that, but I'm hoping that people will look at it, mark their calendars. It's far enough in advance to circle the weekend and say, hey, we're going hiking. We're going to go see the lakes region. We're going to have this party with all these buddies in the middle of it. We're going to have live music. It is a 21 plus event. So we do want to let people know that, they may have to get a sitter if they have kids for that portion of the night. But it's going to be a fantastic time. And I've been to the brewery twice recently since we made the agreement with them, and the food is amazing. The drinks are cold and delicious. So I think we found the right partners and the right people to help us put on a fantastic event, and we're excited about just getting to know a lot of people all at once, and it gives people the ability to make a connection even off the trail to plan future hikes as well. So
yeah, and that is a great region to hike between the Belknaps, the Squam Range, and the Ossipes are right in that area too. And that's actually one other thing before we wrap on this. I wanted to just ask you this question, and I think I know the answer, but like the group's name is tied to the 4,000 footers, but I've definitely seen like there's no limit on posting hikes outside the 4,000 footers.
No, we're all about connecting people for hiking, and if people want to hike, any mountain, in the Northeast, and they think that they're going to be able to find interest, we're fine with that. And I did want to say, we're very proud of the name of our event, and I didn't even say what it was. The event is called Mountains and Microbrews 2021. So we're hoping that everybody will check it out. And if you go to www.hikingbuddiesnh48.com, that's where the registration is going to be. It's not open yet, but it will be by the time this podcast is published.
Perfect. Yeah, we're usually like 3 or 4 weeks behind, so we'll include that in the show notes. And definitely register. And it sounds like it's going to be a fun event. And I have an announcement I'm going to make too, because I'm going to host a buddy hike. I don't know the exact date yet, but I'm going to post something up around probably late June for an early July hike. And I've got to wait until I need a period where it's dried out a little bit, because the hike that I'm going to post, I'm going to actually do 2, but one of the main hike I'm going to post is a hike from Franconia, starting on Franconia for Falling Waters, and then up to the ridge. And then we're going to hike down the Lincoln Slide. And then we are going to bushwhack along the, I think it's the Lincoln Brook, and we're going to bushwhack about a mile and a half. We're going to be hiking in the river until we get out to Lincoln Brook Trail, and then up the slide to Owl's Head. So if you have Owl's Head on the list and you want to do an epic day hike, I'm going to take a group of people. I'll probably limit this to like 6 people, because you don't want to have a big crowd going on this particular hike. But it's epic. I've done it before, and I'm happy to have a crew join me. So I'll post that up on the Hiking Buddies. And then I will very likely also be posting up a hike to do my local mountain, which is in Brownfield, Maine, and it's a mountain called Burnt Meadow. So I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but that is right down the street from my in-laws' house, and it's where I go to do my morning trail runs. It's an easy 3-4 mile hike. So if somebody's looking for something a little easier pace, I'll be posting something up in right around the time that this podcast gets released.
Awesome.
Is Burnt Meadow open now?
I hope it is. It was closed for a while, but you know what? People were just going up. I know they were doing like a logging operation, but I think it's open now. God. I didn't go last year, and I was so sad, but I was like upset because people are parking there and they're like hiking, and I was like, you're going to get the mountain shut down on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But if it's not open, I'll just go to Pleasant in Denmark. So either way, but I want to respect the landowners there, because it's like private land, and people like still hike when it's closed down. And I'm like, if you get this mountain shut down, I'm going to cry, because this is like,
it's a beautiful mountain.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. So again, I will post all this up on the show notes. And Hayley and Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. Just if you're on the cusp of whether you're going to join a buddy hike or not, just dive in and go for it, because I don't think you're going to regret it. So all the people listening.
Yeah, awesome. And I just want to thank you, Mike, for having us on your show, and Hayley, thank you, and Julie, for all your work that you do for the group. And it is a sacrifice for you guys as well, and I know that it's also joy, because I get it too. So thank you guys for kind of joining the endeavor alongside me, and I really appreciate you guys very much.
Yeah, and it's what you're doing is filling an important need for the community, I think, right now. And I'm waiting for that first buddy wedding, and I want to see a buddy baby next year too.
All right, now you're pushing it.
All right. So, all right, thank you so much. All right, Stomp. So the hiking buddies, what do you think? Are you going to do a buddy hike with me someday?
No, I'm all set with people. No, I don't hike with people anymore.
What? I'm a people.
I'm a seclusionist. Yeah, well, I'll hike with you, I guess.
Yeah, I already said I'm hosting too. I'm going down the Lincoln Slide with the buddies. It's going to be good times.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's great. No, I really enjoyed it. I mean, they've got quite the organization going, and it's a great resource. I know it's hard initially when you're trying to hike and you don't know where. I mean, it's helpful if you're a newbie. Without the skills, you get a little safety net, and very cool.
Yeah, it is funny. Like if you think back to like me, I knew you from the Mount Washington Road Race, and I don't think either one of us was like that into hiking before we connected on the Mount Washington race, but we definitely got into hiking. And like I just think of all the characters and the people that we've met and all the friends we've made over the last 10 years or so through hiking. But like a group like this, you can accelerate that.
Oh yeah,
process.
that's what I was going to say, because I mean, our friendships through social media was more of an organic, gradual process, like, meeting Jimmy, Chaga, and these other characters along the way. It was very gradual. But it seems like you can meet a whole bunch of people all at once. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it's very cool. And I want to get that, I'd like to do that overnight thing down in Meredith with you.
Oh, really? You roping me in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do an overnight. I mean, separate tents, of course.
Put two sleeping bags together. That would be so romantic.
I hike with my friend Tom. I actually tell him this. Like we would do winter overnights, and the first couple of times, like we did share a tent, and I just cannot share a tent with anybody. So I just purposely, when I got my new tent, I got a one-person tent so that I can always just say like, nope, I'm sleeping by myself.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to have a little bit of room and not have to climb over people to get out of the tent.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And I'll keep people updated on, on anything related to the buddy hikes. So if you're interested in joining me and getting a little hike in, and join the Hiking Buddies Facebook group, and keep an eye out for a post from me. I'll probably throw something up in probably mid-June about some July hikes. Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
You want to get into some search and rescue news?
Yeah, it's a little quiet on our end, but I think you have a couple, right?
Yeah. There was nothing in New Hampshire. It was slow period, which is good. But I picked out a couple of news stories that are not New Hampshire related, but I thought they were kind of cool. One of which is in the Grand Canyon, and I don't know, I want to get your reaction to this one. It's kind of weird. So it ties into like social media, and it ties into hiking. But there was a guy apparently he just I don't know if he got fined or if he got arrested. I think he got fined. And what he was doing in the Grand Canyon is he's a Washington state man, and he is facing federal charges after he was accused of organizing an illegal 153 person hike. I said 153 people hike through the Grand Canyon. It's amazing
how these stories line up with what I'm thinking, because back to the hiking buddies, I don't recall them talking about do they limit their hikes?
They do. I have to look at the rules, but I do remember seeing something on there. So I think if you ask Ben and Hayley, what they're going to say is that everybody has personal responsibility. But from what I've seen, the people that are out there organizing the hikes have been very conscientious to make sure that they're following size rules around group sizes. So I think for the most part, I've only seen them have groups of 10 at the max. And most of the time I see them posting, it's like 3, 4, 5 people together.
Okay. Yeah. And even like lower with these COVID restrictions that are history now, but back in the day, a few months ago.
Yeah, exactly. So 153, and I guess he had a Facebook group, and somebody infiltrated the Facebook group and tipped off the Park Service, and I think from what I read, so it was looking to do a rim to rim. So I'm assuming they were going to start in the south rim and go to the north rim. And the park right now encourages people to organize themselves in groups of 10 or less. I guess he was spoken to before the day of the hike. Somebody reached out to him and said, "Hey, we got wind of this," and he just continued to move forward. And the park rangers were on it. They knew, and based on the information they had on social media, that this group was arriving. And I think what happened was that the organizer had told people, like, look, it's a big group, but everybody just split themselves up into groups of 10, and then we'll meet down the bottom or something and all hike together. He was charging like $100 fee. That's the other interesting thing about this story is, like, I was like kind of expecting, like, okay, the person's going to be making a lot of money off of this, but I don't think he made that much money. He just wanted to have a big party on the Grand Canyon.
Wow, that's crazy. Hands across the canyon. I mean, that's enough people. You could just stretch out and hold hands and you span from one side to the other.
Yeah. So, and I guess there's a quote in here in the news article. It says, in my 7 months of work, I have never witnessed so many individuals traveling in the same direction in such a condensed period of time and space. I mean, I'm going to try to get, I have a friend that actually works at the Phantom Ranch, and I'm going to try to get Jeff on for a segment, probably in a few episodes to talk a little bit about search and rescue in the Grand Canyon. But like I've been there, and that's a tough hike.
I got a question. What was the date of this again?
This was October 24th of last year. So this is like right in the middle of COVID. It was like cranking there.
That's crazy. Huh. That's really interesting because I was thinking, boy, if this was like a current date, maybe it would be playing into that, like, oh my God, the shackles are off. Like, I'm hearing stories about people planning concerts and like just going ballistic now that these restrictions are lifted and lockdowns are easing here and there.
Yeah, no, this was like right in the middle of COVID. So apparently with the Grand Canyon, like you can do group sizes of up to 30 pre-COVID. And I don't really know if that means like you can have 30 and you have to split up or what the deal is. But due to COVID-19 rules, the groups were limited to 11 total. And, the park officials were alerted to this excursion, and they realized that this was a pretty big group, and they all started sort of organizing together, and they put a stop to it. So it's very, very interesting.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that one goes back to October. And then the other interesting news article I have here is in New Mexico. This is another big group issue. So there was 24 hikers rescued after attempting to climb New Mexico's Organ Mountains. So I guess it's a pretty steep hike. It's like,
and this is closer to today, I guess.
Yeah, this is closer to, I think this happened like a week or two ago. So I guess the mountain is called the Organ Needle. It's a 9,000-foot mountain, and it's 4,000 feet of elevation, and apparently it's like straight up. There's no switchbacks, class 3 and 4 scrambling, which I'm assuming that means it's like scree fields and very much like 3,000 feet of the Watcher, basically.
Or like Spanx Trail, that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it sounds like the big group, they all got separated. One lady was severely injured and unable to move. Other people had like minor injuries, and it sounds like search and rescue had to mobilize. And as they were going up to check on everybody, they kept it was almost like a Falling Waters episode where you guys run into like one person that's hurt and then you see another one. It was just continually a number of people getting injured. So big groups, you've got to be careful, I guess.
Yeah.
In New Hampshire, are you aware of any like big groups that have gotten into serious trouble in the past?
No. Nope. I know of groups, but I don't recall any stories of anybody getting busted or called out or anything like that.
Yeah. The only incident that stands out to me, and I'll have to, maybe we'll do a story on this one and go back, but there was a group, I think it was Canadian, like high school kids, and they had chaperones, and I do remember they were on Franconia Ridge heading down to Greenleaf, and there was a group of, I think, 4 students that got separated from their chaperones.
Just to clarify, they weren't separated; they were left. If I remember correctly, yeah, the big difference.
I was trying to be nice, but
what a story! That one's a tough story. We should cover that sometime.
Yeah, we will. I mean, the Cliff Note version of it is I believe the AMC crew members were able to go up there and luckily locate at least one student who was separated from the group, and they were able to get her down. But it may have been more. But I will put that on the list to do more of a deep dive on.
Yeah, that'll be a great one.
Yeah, but like so the theme of the show is like, hiking in groups. Definitely, you've got to communicate to everyone you're hiking with. Don't be shy to just sort of lay the rules down, and if somebody's getting in trouble, everybody sticks together, and you all get out in one big group. So,
yeah, very good.
But I think that's it. Anything else you want to cover, Stomp?
No, that was a great episode.
Yeah,
excellent,
awesome. Let's wrap it up.
Yes, until next time.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered on today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information on SLASRpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until next time, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words that describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hill!
Lieutenant James Neeland, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.